Hi there, Pastor Adam from Living Springs here. We are continuing our journey, or our series of videos on the Sermon on the Mount. And we've got to Matthew chapter 5, verses 31 to 32, where Jesus talks about divorce. And so let's just have a little look and see what Jesus says. It has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. This is going to be a brief look at this because this is a very difficult subject. Talking about divorce, talking about making somebody an adulteress is hard. The context of Jesus' teaching here is that the Pharisees, there were two schools of thought, so to speak. There were the Shammai and Hillel. These two factions of the Pharisees, the religious rulers of the day, debated the legitimate grounds for divorce. The Hillel faction permitted a man to put away his wife for any good cause, to divorce his wife for any good cause, which could be as minor an issue as just burning his food, while the Shammai limited it to adultery. And Jesus was trying to address these thoughts around adultery. Theologian Craig Blomberg points out that Jesus never commands divorce, but only permits it if all attempts at reconciliation are failed, because he recognizes that adultery has already undermined one of the most fundamental elements of marriage, sexual exclusivity. He also says that verse 32 most likely doesn't reflect a consideration of every conceivable legitimate or illegitimate ground for divorce. Instead, Jesus is responding to a specific debate in first century Judaism. I would agree with this. If we take a very narrow reading of what Jesus has said there, what would we do with cases of domestic abuse, neglect? Just to name maybe two areas that aren't covered. Jesus is right into specific situations, and we need to pray into those. Would I, as a pastor, advise a man or a woman who's being abused to stay with that person? No, I would tell them to leave. Would I tell them to divorce them? Well, that's a different story after a lot of reconciliation and necessary reporting has taken place. Would it be ultimately grounds for divorce? I think it's so difficult. To me, on the face of it, it would appear so. But each of these areas has to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. Regarding remarriage in circumstances where Christians have got divorced, is it allowed? As a pastor, I find this a challenging area. On first reading, it may appear that Jesus is saying someone should not remarry. And certainly in my early days as a pastor, as a trainee pastor, I would have leaned towards this interpretation. But now I'm thinking it's not as clear cut as it appears. I will not dig in further into it in this video because I feel it needs a video of its own, a more dedicated video, which we may do in due course. I think the crux of what Jesus is saying is that divorce should not be entered into quickly. One should not look for innocuous reasons to divorce. Marriage is meant to be a lifelong commitment. society, it seems, is trying to make marriage disposable. If you are watching this and if you are having marriage difficulties, I would say reach out to us, send us a message. We'd love to pray with you, support you how we can. But I do want you to hear, if you are in a dangerous situation, an abusive situation, I want you to go and seek immediate help. Speak to somebody, call the police, get out, be safe. Everything else we can pull together afterwards. Marriage is a lifelong commitment, but it doesn't have to be a dangerous commitment. I'm just going to pray for marriages. Dear God, I just want to pray for marriages that are struggling at the moment, for marriages where there are trouble, Lord. I pray you'll be with them, guide them, help them, in Jesus' name. To give you a bit of encouragement regarding marriage, there's a testimony that one of our church members has recorded, and I'm going to put a link to it in the comments below. And I can encourage you to listen to that, how God saved her marriage. I hope this video has helped. Please do reach out if you've got any concerns. God bless.